Hey, ducklings, welcome back. Another episode of Out of Office with your work mom, Arlyne.
And your work on Jose.
We're happy to have you here. Thanks for spending a few minutes with us. Um, just thought that we would take some time to talk about things that are important to your early career development, as well as other things that might happen during your day. Work on how's your day been?
It's been a good week. We're trying to get through this time, get ready for the holidays. Uh, some people it's not always the best holidays time, but trying to make the best of it. So
Yeah, I think as we're winding down the year, we're seeing a lot of hustle and bustle. And I, for one, am going to be very excited to take the quiet and not have to look at my phone, not have to look at the calendars, and then just really just kind of enjoy time with friends and family. So I love it. I think I'm here for it. I'm ready for it.
yeah, I think we're all ready for it.
Yeah.
So let's jump into it. But Arlene, we've been doing now these episodes. It's been a few of them, and we've posted and done a really good job with it. And people have been giving us a lot of feedback and leaving a lot of comments for us. We got one comment. I thought it was a good time to start actually bringing these comments into our conversations. So wanted to bring it to your attention and see what you thought about it. So the comment was, lately I've been getting a lot of early morning meetings and call invitations. Do I really have to show up to all of them?
Oh, that is a good one. That's a great one. And here's my short answer, particularly when you are early in your career. Short answer is yes. Show up on time, sometimes early. And until you're told no, yeah, I'm going to say that you're going to have to show up. So it's just
Do I really have to? That's my answer.
so yeah, you really have to. So I know sometimes it doesn't feel like that is the answer that you want to hear, but as you're kind of getting grounded in your daily work, and really kind of getting a feel for your place in the organization while you're new, while you're early in your career. Again, if you are, unless you're told specifically, the right answer, the best answer is yes. And if you're not sure, obviously it's an opportunity to ask. So that might be a good one for us to kind of dive into a little bit deeper. What do you
Yeah,
think?
I would love to. I love it. I think it's a great topic. I hear it a lot from different coworkers as I'm going through
Yeah.
my day, and so perfect timing.
Yeah, I agree. I think we all face that, especially since we've gone, from being in the office, for those of us that remember being in the office, to now having an opportunity to be hybrid or be remote. And even if you're not in an office setting, there, sometimes you are in a retail environment or some type of job that have occasional meetings, whether they be shift meetings or whether they be, kind of all hands quarterly meetings. And I know sometimes it's really tempting to either kind of ditch or skip out or really quietly uh, forget. But I would say um, that it's really important that as somebody who has accepted the responsibility or accepted the job, it's really important to really kind of bring that full energy, and really kind of embrace the expectations of what you signed up to do. I know that sometimes we've got a lot of things going on, right? I mean, we're pretty well-rounded individuals, and work should not necessarily be your life, but if you accept the role, it pays for your life. And so, for those hours that you've committed to getting the paycheck or committed to the responsibility of being in that role, I think it's really important that we figure out how to balance what makes sense in terms of uh, of stepping up to the plate, if you will.
I totally agree with that. I mean, you got to remember, people are counting you to do your job. You if they weren't counting on you, then they wouldn't have hired you. I mean, someone went through a lot of effort, the recruitment, the chasing down, finding you, interviewing you, getting you in the door, training you, and getting you there so that you can fulfill this role. be considerate and at least understand your role in the team, understand the role that you play and why it's important. These are conversations you should consistently be having with your team and understanding what that role is. So,
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's a really great point. There's a lot of investment. We talked about this in a previous video. A lot of investment of people's time and energy, as well as the cost, right? The money it took to get someone hired into the role that you're playing. And so, by way of accepting that, you've entered into an agreement, right? And to do the work and to show up. And sometimes it's not really sexy, especially if you are being asked to go to meetings that maybe seem a little bit outside of things that are interesting to you. Sometimes it's just kind of part of the job. Um, but I think, particularly as someone who's early in their career, you don't necessarily have a lot of graces um, that someone who's a little bit more tenured in their role,
yeah.
partially because you still are on this path of learning, and there are some expectations that you are asked to be a part of something for a very specific reason, whether it be to take notes, whether it be to learn something, whether it be, to really kind of be there to experience what is going on and understand the context of the meeting. And so you may not necessarily think that it's something really exciting, but it's relevant to the job that they've asked you to do. And so for that, I would say that it's not just important that you show up. Let's pause for a second. Being on time is really important. Sometimes life happens, sometimes stuff happens. But, I would say that particularly if you are in a role where you report to multiple people or you have different responsibilities, until you are in a position or that there's something really that has been interfering with you getting to a meeting or getting to work on time, it's really important that you make your best effort to do that. And if possible, even show up a few minutes early, right? I'm not saying an hour early, but a few minutes early, because really at the end of the day, there's an impression there that will follow you for the rest of your time with that job. So,
No, those are great. I mean, understanding that life happens common. I really, things happen, and you always got to take that into consideration. But just trying to make sure that life is not happening every time, because then you're starting to build habits there. If it becomes a consistent problem, then be courteous at least. Have a conversation with the right people. Develop a backup system if necessary. Understand your role, and if you're not going to be able to make it for whatever the reason may be, that backup person or the backup system that you develop will be able to cover you in the meantime. I equate this also with lateness. If lateness is a problem, then it's time to develop a new habit. It's not a
yeah,
habit that you want to continue, because after a while you won't be continuing that habit at that job. That I can almost promise that'll be
yeah,
the end result. So learn to prepare early, get yourself moving, get yourself on your way earlier than you normally would leave. On your calendar for a meeting, set a reminder to alert you earlier if there's certain meetings that are very important, and you can customize those alerts. So I know I can do that on Outlook. Do whatever is necessary to build good habits. But just remember, give yourself grace. It takes about 2 weeks to build a good habit and ingrain it into your DNA. You'll start seeing the results sooner or later after that. Just as you're learning these new habits that you're going, well, the first day didn't work out the way I wanted to. So don't just scrap it on the first day. Give it a couple days until that habit becomes part of your work life.
yeah. Those are really, really great suggestions, because I do think that, even though sometimes we think about that, we don't necessarily remind ourselves to put those into practice. And it doesn't matter if you are first day on the job or 10 years on the job. There are just some tips that you basically said that if you adopt those habits early enough, they are going to become lasting habits. And, one of the things that I, like to think about for myself is like, listen, there's really nothing bad that can happen from being on time to something that you've asked to be at. If a meeting starts at, X o'clock, then be there a couple of minutes before X o'clock. Dial in, show up, whatever. If anything, if you have to be somewhere physically, you might get a good seat or a good parking spot, right? I mean, there's just a whole lot of things um, that come with being on time, being a little bit early if it's possible. And the flip side of that is even being a few minutes late leaves an impression with folks that are basically there on time, right? Nobody wants to necessarily be that person walking in as your manager or as a colleague is already starting to talk, and then now you've disrupted really kind of the flow of a discussion or a meeting. So some of those things I think are really mindful, and it just shows that you're considerate, right? You value their time, you value your own time, and that you leave a good impression. So I
I
think,
agree 100% with that. The one habit that I still do to this day, and I mean I've been in the workforce now for 20 plus years, is prepping the night before. I look at my calendar. I get myself mentally prepared for the day. I take my clothes out. I'll even if I have to prepare lunch or breakfast, I'll sort my day out and go, okay, this is what I'm going to be dealing with tomorrow. I'll
yeah,
even look at the weather. Just when I know if I'm going to expect rain, snow, etc. I lived in New York City for a long time. Any one of these weather conditions are going to affect your transport, and you're going to get there later than you thought you would. So be considerate, give yourself enough time. It'll give you less stress and allow you to adjust to whatever does happen in life.
yeah, yeah. I think that's a really good pivot in the conversation a little bit. Look, we understand, as somebody who's led teams, I know you've led teams. We both are people managers. Life happens, and we both, respectively, have full lives outside of work. I mean, we talk about food a lot, we talk about travel a lot, we talk about things that we do outside of the conventional workday. And so, if you're with a group and you are with a team that respects that and respects you, and you respect that environment or that organization enough
Mhm.
to take on a role, and I think it's really important to remember that nobody uh, is so unreasonable that they don't allow you to really kind of take time to do things that that really kind of feed the other part of your life, right? The things that are outside of work. I think the point of this conversation is, you know, even if you have a remote or a hybrid schedule, go have the lunch, go do your laundry, go do an errand if it's in between meeting. It's just if it's in between, if it's in between the work that you're expected to do during the workday. I think there's a lot of grace there, especially with remote and hybrid type of environments. It's very different if you're on shift work and you're expected to be on site. But for those that really kind of have the opportunity to do things really kind of on their own time, then I would say nobody expects you to not really kind of do some of those things during the workday, right? I mean, it's just being able to manage your time wisely. The part that I think gets really challenging is when you place priorities that are interfering with the work that you have accepted to do as a part of that work day, and then it goes noticed. If there is things, and here's an example, right? I mean, Jose, you know me, I love a good chat and a good story. But one of the
Yeah.
examples for me that really sticks out is, I had somebody on a team that, she got engaged and it was really exciting time for her, but she would leave the workday to go things like look at venues and cake tastings, and would cut out of meetings or not show up to meetings because that was a priority, and had somebody else who had a side hustle that they would cut out of things so that they could go do their side hustle in the conventional work time frame, when we had other things that were scheduled. And to that I would say, you know there's a reason why a lot of employers and organizations give you paid time off, or they give you an opportunity to accumulate vacation or time to do personal things. And if it's something that is going to take up your focus and your energy during the workday, then ask for the time off. Don't go around and sneak and miss a meeting or be late to a meeting because you were busy taking, a cake tasting or a class that ran a little too long. Those are the big no-nos that I think that you don't necessarily think that that get noticed because they aren't necessarily confronted immediately, but they will wind up showing up, whether it be a performance review or a conversation later. And that's the thing that I think in our conversation today, being able to kind of give you a heads up that, hey, you know, understood life, like work is not your life. Again, it pays for your life, but you made a commitment to come to this job. And if you don't want this job, that's okay. It's okay to pivot that too. But while you're here, make it count, right?
No, I love that advice, work mom. I want to take it just a step further. You should focus on your job if you're brand new to a job for the time being until you have a system in place. And then if you want to dedicate something on something else outside of that and your time allows and doesn't interfere with the main job that pays for the very important bills that you have, then you can pursue that. But make sure you get in your rhythm, your routine. People understand your work effort and what you're going to bring to the table before you decide to introduce something new or some new, side hustle that you didn't know that you wanted to pursue.
Yeah. I have there's a young person in my life and I love him dearly and he's going to know who he is as soon as I say this. But, there was a point where he was between jobs and he was just like, well, maybe I'll learn how to DJ. Maybe I'll DJ and that'll be my side hustle. And maybe that'll take, maybe that'll be my new career pivot. Great. Cool. I'm here for it. And it was something that he kind of tinkered with, but it didn't necessarily cut into his conventional workday or his really kind of his job pursuits. And the minute that he actually found something that really he needed to focus his time and energy on, well, all of a sudden the side hustle became a hobby. And there's nothing wrong with either scenario. He could have been wildly successful and decided that that's what he wanted to do, and cool. Like, hey, if it pays for, the life that you want, that's cool. But I think the great thing about that was that he honored the commitment that he made, right? He's just like, okay, cool. This is now a hobby because now I have to focus learning about my new job and kind of being and showing up or whatever. And, if it's a gig that I take on the weekends, cool. That's awesome. If not, you know what? This job gives me medical insurance, so I got to honor that. So there's
Priorities.
yeah, for sure. So
Well, I mean, I'm glad that we got to really do a deep dive into that comment. So let's start wrapping up and jump into WorkUnk's takeaways. So, all right, whenever ready.
all right, let's go.
All right, take your job seriously and dedicate the necessary time to make sure that you will not be late. You only get one shot at first impressions. That is the most important line out of this. Plan ahead. Prep your clothes, your lunch, your breakfast. Look at the weather. Plan for everything. Don't get caught by surprise as much as possible. Control the things that you can control. Make sure that you're giving 100% effort so that you get that level of effort back towards you. If you have a bad habit of being late, then work on building good habits. But remember that it takes time. So give yourself grace. It can take up to 2 weeks to build a good habit. Try to minimize side activity as much as possible until you have a firm grasp on your schedule and your responsibilities. Finally, understand that life happens. Let your manager know so that they can you can minimize the surprises for them. You'll get further with a bit of transparency and keeping people informed. So that's my takeaways. Arlyne?
Yeah, I love that. It basically puts punctuation on things that we talked about at length. And so thanks, Workonk. I'd say just to kind of wrap us up, to take us home, um, you know, again, we've kind of peppered throughout this conversation that the job that you took means, there are certain expectations and responsibilities just by way of you accepting the role, right? There was a lot of investment, there's a lot of time and effort to select you, right? To make sure that you are the right person for the role. So there's really a notion that you have to be accountable to that, right? So the second thing that I would say that is related to that is, by way of accepting the job and being accountable to it, it gives you an opportunity to honor the opportunity that you were given, right? They took a chance on you. There were others who wanted the opportunity, and while you're there, whether it be 6 months, whether it be 6 years, there's an opportunity for you to really kind of honor and learn as much as you can, and grow and shine in that spot. And then finally, I would say is that, and again, this is a theme throughout the entire conversation, but being considerate of other people's time. If there's something that's going on in your personal life, or there's something that is conflicting, make sure that you give someone a heads up, right? I mean, one of the things that I love that you said, work on, is like, hey, let a manager know, let somebody know, if you are not able to make a commitment, if you have any questions about whether or not it is a necessary meeting or outing or event or whatever. There's all that is a quick conversation to get clarification there, whether or not it's something that is material to your job, it's material to having your energy there. It's just a matter of being considerate, not only to your manager, but to the team, but also to any of your customers or colleagues or the organization that brought you there. So that being said, there's a whole lot there. This seems like, a pretty straightforward, no nonsense kind of like, yeah, you gotta bite the bullet a little bit and really kind of embrace the fact that, yes, you do have to show up. Yes, show up, be on time. If you can, be a little bit early. And if you can't, then let's think about how we are considerate towards the folks that depend on you, or rethink really kind of whether or not you have a long-term future with this particular space. All of it is okay. So that being said, that's a lot. More importantly, go live your life. Thank you for spending some time with us and having a listen. We'd also love to hear any questions or any topics that you would love to talk about, hear about. So either drop us a note on one of our socials, or drop us a note in our info contact sheet on our website. And until then, hey, work mom.
Hey, work, Unk.
We'll see you on the next one. Thanks.